Hello world, from Oktopost headquarters, this is Radically Transparent, Oktopost's original podcast show on B2B marketing now. I'm Jennifer Gutman, Director of Social Strategy, and in most episodes of this podcast, we'll feature B2B marketing leaders who will share their radically transparent truths behind being a modern day marketer and what it takes to grow ideas, take risks, and impact change. Joining me on this episode is Jonathan Raveh, Head of Community Marketing at AppsFlyer and a SaaS mobile marketing analytics and attribution platform. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. What a great intro. That was very promising.
I'm excited for our episode and hope it's just as promising. And for our listeners out there, what I want to just kind of start off by saying is that Jonathan doesn't come from just an ordinary company. Back in January, AppsFlyer had actually secured, and Jonathan, keep me honest here, $210 million in Series D funding. And at a $1.6 billion valuation, AppsFlyer is the only and first unicorn in the attribution category. That's wild. Is that true?
That is true. That is true. We are market leaders. We have about 70% market share. It's been a crazy ride. I've only joined that rocket ship a year ago, or a little over a year ago. But yes, it's a crazy company. It's still growing.
It's doing great things. And you know, I follow AppsFlyer. I follow you on LinkedIn, and I think something that I just want to understand while I have you on this interview. Right? What exactly is AppsFlyer, and what does it mean to be head of community marketing there? And in general, what is community marketing?
Okay, let's start with AppsFlyer. That'll be more simple to explain. AppsFlyer is a mobile analytics and attribution solution. Basically, attribution is the core element in analytics. It tells you where the user that you acquired got from. Where exactly did it come from? A campaign? Did it come organically? And if it came from a campaign, from advertising, which campaign, what ad? And it basically allows mobile marketers to get a much better picture of their ROI of their campaign. They can manage the campaign much better and make decisions that will impact their app's growth.
Okay, so it's all about measuring.
It's all about measuring. Also, another name for AppsFlyer and its competitors in the MMP. It's Mobile Measurement Platform. So you're definitely spot on there. In terms of head of community marketing, that's a bit more complicated. I was actually hired to do something a bit different. Among my responsibilities when I was hired was to write thought leadership posts for Owen Kaniel, the CEO. And what happened is that specific role expanded and expanded and expanded to where we are today, which is basically all that I'm doing right now. And it's writing thought leadership posts for AppsFlyer employees. I've written to over 60 people. I just counted this last Friday. I've written to 61 people, and I'm pretty close to 300 posts. So I'm going to pass the 300 mark this week.
That's incredible. Writing as one, you know, a lot of talk in the B2B marketing space, and for anyone active on LinkedIn, you know, you hear the buzzword, right? Thought leadership, and we're all seeking to become thought leaders in what we do. And that's an insane amount of posts. So if you're pumping out hundreds of posts, and, you know, I think soon probably get seeing you posting on all of these executive behalfs in the thousands, you know, that's not an easy job, Jonathan. And so when I think about, you know, even when I did a quick search on LinkedIn about seeing, okay, who else is in this space in terms of who else is a community marketer, I wasn't finding so much out there. So something that kind of made me wonder for you, like, here you are building this community, yet there seems that you're kind of leading the way in it. What keeps you up at night professionally in the role or personally in terms of what you do?
So first, let's differentiate something. Thought community is more of a, I don't know, two-way street,
Okay.
where community members speak to each other, talk to each other. Usually there's some sort of platform. There are conferences where people talk to each other, and we're on our way to building something like that.
Okay.
But my role is really more relevant to thought leadership. And thought leadership, of course, we try to encourage engagement, but it's not as two-sided street as community. It's something a bit different. It's talking to the community, but it's less about, multiple conversations happening. What keeps me out of night is very simple. It's the LinkedIn algorithm, which has been changing a lot in the past year and 3 months that I've been doing my job. It's changing a lot. Stuff is changing a lot on LinkedIn itself. A lot more thought leadership, a bit less promotion. People are starting to see the value. The competition is more fierce in that respect. And actually breaking down the algorithm, understanding what makes a post really tick. I'd say that's what keeps me up at night. I mean, I've learned a few things along the way, but there's still like 95% unknown.
Yeah. Now, in terms of, you mentioned the LinkedIn algorithm, and I think for any marketer listening, I think we're all on board with you there. Is there a secret sauce or formula when it comes to writing thought leadership? And, I know a big piece of what marketing is, especially with LinkedIn, is, you're creating this content in hopes of whether it's driving engagement or right, there's that term again, thought leadership. Should we be worried if our posts that we're creating aren't getting any likes or comments, but yet, let's say, high impressions, or how are we even measuring this?
Okay, there's so many questions
There's a few
here.
yeah, you can see it's
one by
really
one.
heated. It's like, wow, my mind is spinning.
I usually, for me, likes and comments are means to an end.
Okay.
And the end goal is distribution, is views. This is the main method with which I'm actually measuring the success. And usually, the more likes you get, and certainly the more comments you get, the better the distribution is. This is how the LinkedIn recognizes that a post is worthy of distributing. But the idea here, the narrative that every company should have when they're trying to understand how to use LinkedIn, is that it's a different mindset. The very idea of promotion is completely opposite to thought leadership. Thought leadership isn't about promotion. It shouldn't be about promotion. When promotion has, is a different matrix, has different goals, it looks different, it feels different, and the audience feels it different. Anyone can spot a promotion after 2 seconds of watching any text. You can spot a promotion. Thought leadership should never be that way. So if you're really into doing some thought leadership, the first thing you need to remember is that the mindset is really different. You're not out to promote your services, your solution, your products, your platform. There's no need for that. You can't do it. What you need to do is promote ideas, and only ideas. I try to tell people that I work with that they need to try to think of AppsFlyer when they write posts as a companion. Okay, it's out there, it's somewhere in the background, but it's never the topic. Never, ever the topic. And of course, there's a lot more going on there. Of course, even if you promote something, there's a way to promote it. Okay, don't talk about what you did. Talk about the pains of the audience. What pain do they have? And then speak about your solution. But first, try to bring value to your customers. And customers, they don't care about your product. They care about their problems. There's a very important distinction there.
Hmm. Yeah. So when you're, I'm just, as you're saying this, right? So it's like, okay, I'm thinking about everything I do when I write a LinkedIn post, right? Don't necessarily talk, let's say I'm here at Oktopost, but how should I be structuring that piece of content on social, right? Can you walk me through some of the best practices, if there are? I mean, a certain number of characters we should be using? Does that even exist? What in your definition of kind of a post that's going to drive that, what does that look like?
Okay, very good question. First of all, headline, okay, title. You're writing something, so the first sentence should be usually not long, and should really catch the eye. There needs to be something, I don't know if provocative is the right word, but it needs to catch the attention. It needs to be interesting. The role of the headline is to get the user to read the second line. The role of the second line is to get the user to read the third line, and it goes on and on and on. So the title is super important. It should be strong, it should be interesting, and it shouldn't be very, very long. Bulks of text, that's never a good thing. Nobody has time to read long bulks of text. When people see a paragraph with 8 lines, most of them will just skip it. So short paragraphs, 1-2 sentences, then space, then another paragraph. So in terms of structure, this is the way I choose to write posts, and I've seen it working much better than any other ways of writing. The maximum character limit is 13.
Sorry, I was just thinking here. And before we get to the characters, I know people are dying to hear about that, but in terms of the writing, right, there used to be kind of this way to write LinkedIn posts that you'd include a link attachment. Those days seem to be gone. Would you agree? For thought leadership?
The very fact that you're trying to send a user to another page, that already means that it's a promotion. Even if you're promoting something else that you wrote on a different, that's kind of a promotion.
If you're
not sending them to the Oktopost homepage or content.
Could you say that again? The internet went out a little bit. Gotta love working from home.
Sure. Sending users outside LinkedIn, that's already kind of the opposite of thought leadership. You're trying to carry an idea in a very short message, and sending them outside, that already means you're promoting something. Even if it's something else that you wrote, even if it's not your website, it still means you're promoting something. Again, that's the opposite of thought leadership. Thought leadership is about conveying very, very specific messages in a very short text. It shouldn't be long. Okay, if you wanted to write something long, buy a piece of real estate on Forbes and then write 300 pages over there. Fewer people will look at it, but you can say that you're on Forbes. But that's more PR than thought leadership. Character limit. That's why character limit. That's why character limit. Right. Character limit is important there. When you talk about character limit, it's, again, there's 1,300 characters the limit. I wouldn't, unless absolutely necessary, I wouldn't go over 1,000. Of course, sometimes you have to, but I would go less than 1,000, usually around 600, 700. It really depends. You see thought leaders on LinkedIn that write 2 lines, and people minds are exploding in just 2 lines. People like Dave Gerhardt and other people. So it really, really, really depends. I try not to break the 800, 900 character limit. But the main thing is in terms of structure, it's less of content, it's more of content. What I see people trying to do, they have so much to say. They're trying to get as many messages as possible inside one piece of post. That's wrong. one post, one message. That's it. If you have another message, save it to the next day. Write another post. Don't confuse the two. Just try to write one message in one post. I think that's one of the most important in terms of structure. That will lead the structure later on, since you're already circling around one message.
So you bring up an interesting point. So you said, right, one message, one post, one message. And if you have another message that you're starting to write inside that post, save it for another day. What do you think should be kind of the number of times an individual post on LinkedIn before they're drowned out by the algorithm, or before people start to tune out? Is it once a day, you would say?
I wouldn't post over once a day, but any less than once a day is fine, of course. Again, it all depends on the value and the traction that it gains. But once a day is fine. Skip the weekends 5 times a day. That's pretty cool. I wish I could write for anyone 5 times a day. Unfortunately, I'm only one person, and there are 60 people that need my skills, so that's not possible. I try to write for them once a week.
Okay.
For a few, I try to write more than once a week. But to be completely honest, that's not enough. That's not enough. If you really want to be a thought leader, if you really want to invest, you need a year, like a full year, where you write 3 times a week.
Okay. Well, anyone listening, I expect we all can be working in that direction, because I do think, for many of us marketers and individuals, thought leadership is quite important. It is the way of the future. So you mentioned that you write for 61 people at AppsFlyer. That's crazy. I write for Jen and Oktopost, and sometimes my head's exploding. What's your system in staying organized? And that's 61 people. No two people are the same. How are you working with the different personalities to capture their essence? Are you trying to capture their essence? Would you say how you write for them is their personality on LinkedIn? Do you shift it up a bit? What does that even look like if someone wanted to build out or introduce this role into their own organization?
Well, I think that the biggest challenge that I have is being so adaptive to so many people. So I think there's no real method to write to so many people. You need to be super flexible, and you need to really adapt yourself to. It's not only the what they want to say, what those people want to say. It's their schedule, is how they look at writing. Some are good writers, some know completely nothing. They know nothing about writing. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Let's keep it politically correct. Some know a lot, some know a little, but they all need my help. What I try is to understand what the person is, what does he want to say. Okay, he works in a specific role, he does a specific thing, there's something specific that he wants to say as a whole, as a narrative, and from there I try to pretty much interview them, either on a call or on a Slack, or I prepare a questionnaire for them, and from there we move on. The real challenge that I have is the fact that I can't come up with 60 different writing styles. Okay, people that know what I do, when they see a post, a lot of them will spot my writing.
A Jonathan post.
Okay. Yes, I can't escape from it. I can't make up 60 different styles, and the ones that know how to write, so they try to edit a lot of my posts and make them a little bit more them. But most of the people aren't skillful writers, so they keep my style, and then it kind of shines. People see that. It's usually inside the organization, but a lot of people outside the organization are noticing as well. It's tough luck. But for me, it's more important to get the message out, and the right message out of these people, than people spotting that it's a style that someone else, thought of.
Interesting. So in terms of, I'm just thinking like workflows, right? Because this is such an interesting role to have. So you write the content. Let's say you wake up on Monday morning, you have your cup of coffee, you write your content, and then does it go over to the desks of those that you're writing for? They take a look, and if they tweak it, does it come back to you to get like the Jonathan stamp of approval that this is thought leadership worthy after they've edited it? Or do you trust that once it's in their hands, they can do whatever they'd like with it and it goes out how they see fit?
Well, believe me, Jen, when I tell you that each process with these 60 people is totally different. Some I think of posts to write to them, then they approve, then I write it, then they approve again and post it. Some think of an idea and ask me to write it. Some will write their own posts and tell me, hey, Jonathan, take a look. And then I'll probably completely rewrite it, hand it over to them and say, oh, that looks better, and post it. There's so many variations. So I've just learned to accept the fact that I can't even forecast when I start working with a person how it's going to look like. They each have their own method, their own kind of way of feeling comfortable with someone else writing their text and their messages. In the end, I'm conveying messages that they have. So some of it feel completely comfortable with it from the first post. Some will take a few posts to start to get more comfortable with it. In the end, it's social media. It's your own personal brand, and people are very, very, very touchy about that. Mm-hmm. So I've learned to accept that, and to I think one of the attributes that makes me good at what I do is patience. You can't do what I do without a high level of patience for the people that you write for. I wish I would be that patient to my kids back home when I'm trying to work and they're keeping me up at night. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I definitely, writing for 61 people, patience, being dynamic, I can definitely see how all of that comes together. Something at Oktopost we do talk a lot about is mindset, tool set, and skill set. And so I think we've hit on a few of those components today in terms of the mindset needed to write thought leadership content, the skill set, the patience, the ability to adapt and be dynamic. Tool set. How are you thriving on social media?
Well, that's a $1 million question, isn't it? First of all, if we're talking about tools, I don't have any tools that I use to track and to understand better. I use LinkedIn. I use the LinkedIn platform. I don't have any other tool. I think to do what I do, there's a lot of internal education that's needed inside the company. Mm-hmm. And for me, the basic, maybe it goes to mindset as well. But for me, the basic tool is convincing people inside the company that they have something to say. Okay, most people will think one of three things. First of all, I have nothing to say. Okay, I need to prove them wrong, because everyone, not only the executives, from the receptionist to the CEO, everyone has something to say. That's how I feel. Maybe a cliche, but that's how I feel. Second, they said it's been written before. That's a second hurdle that I have to pass. Yes, probably it's been written before, but not to the right people, not with the right angle, not with the right message. And the third one is I don't know how to write, and that's the easiest for me because that's what I do. Okay. So I think we're talking about tools. For me, the internal persuasion, I think that took me a long time to reach where I am today. And the tools I'm using is basically conversation, examples, success stories, to get other people to jump on board. when we're talking about the LinkedIn algorithm, I really don't have a lot of tools. You know,
Yeah, I think we're
there are
all
not
pretty
many tools.
out of luck there.
Yeah, there aren't any tools. It's just do it and do it a lot. The best tools I can give you, the audience listening here, if you haven't, zoomed out already, it's practice, practice. Do it. Don't be afraid. Do it. Do it. Learn from your mistakes. Don't learn from not doing anything. You won't learn anything. Just do it. Start practicing.
We have heard from the great Jonathan Raveh at AppsFlyer. Our time is winding down, and something I'd like to ask you, Jonathan, before our time is finished. We know a lot about you. We see your LinkedIn profile. We know a lot about AppsFlyer. We've Googled. Can you share with us on this episode something about yourself that our listeners cannot find out on LinkedIn?
I'll share two things. First one is that I'm a surfer.
Oh,
That's probably I should have kept it to the second one because the second one is less interesting. But I'm a surfer. That's what I do. I love it. I think the closest I'll ever get to anything spiritual is when I surf. The second thing is, which is as further away from being spiritual as possible, is that I'm a retired lawyer. I passed the bar exams. I studied law. I passed the bar exam and I immediately quit. And this is where I am today.
What a fun fact. Well, look at that. So anybody looking to really do thought leadership, perhaps consider a career in law before marketing.
I don't recommend it, but sure.
Jonathan, the man, the myth, the legend. Thank you so much for your time. Last question. Where can our audience find you, read your thought leadership, see what you're up to? What are the best social channels and where can we be in touch?
Well, first of all, you have to listen to the Oktopost podcast. This is where you can find me.
There you go.
It's an amazing podcast. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Jonathan Raveh with an H in the end of the Raveh, and try to look for people on AppsFlyer that are writing a lot. Ziv Peled, Oren Kaniel, and a lot of other people. I won't name any more names there. But yes, that's the way to find me and the stuff that I do.
There you go. And so for anyone listening, if you are on LinkedIn, follow Jonathan and see which other AppsFlyers you can spot with the Jonathan post. And you can feel free to shoot him a message, let him know you heard him on this podcast and that you're counting to figure out who he's writing for.
Oh, God. That could turn into a game.
There you go. We're about to gamify this podcast. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure. And we hope to maybe have you on season 4.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Of course. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. I'm Jennifer Gutman, your host and Director of Social Strategy at Oktopost. For more incredible episodes, be sure to follow our channel, B2B Marketing Now, wherever you get your podcasts.